Senator Carley, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you now.
Wonderful. All right, this is John Carley from District 29 running for Senate. Welcome. The South Dakota Property Rights and Local Control Alliance, SDPRLCA, thanks you for participating in our 2026 primary legislative candidate video survey. As a nonpartisan grassroots organization, SDPRLCA is dedicated to protecting private property rights and maintaining local authority. Following the 2024 general election, where 65 of 66 South Dakota counties voted no on Referred Law 21, voters are eager to hear where the 2027 legislative class stands on these core issues. So, our ground rules for tonight is we'll have an introduction from you for a minute and a half. There will be 5 targeted questions, which you have had in advance. 2 minutes will be allowed per response, and then we'll have a 2-minute closing statement. Upon completion of the video survey, the candidates will log off the call, and then all 5 questions again you've had will focus specifically on property rights and local control, and you've had gotten those in advance. For the public record, recordings will be posted in their entirety on our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and website. All right, so with this, I will go ahead and introduce John Carley from District 29, and you have a minute and a half for an introduction.
Thank you. Well, great to be on the call with everyone here today, and thanks for doing this recording that asks some important questions amongst our state. As a legislator, I take that very seriously, that we're representing not only our district, but we're also voting for the state. And so I'm planning on running for reelection. I've been in the Senate for the past 2 years and big advocate for property rights. I've been one of the few people who have actually brought legislation in regards to protecting property rights and preventing eminent domain abuse, as well as supporting a number of pieces of legislation with that. So I'm a businessman. I have a family of 5 kids, I should say, and a great wife of 26 years, and love serving our citizens. I think it's amazing. It's a part-time job. I like that. I like that we get to go back and work. In my case, work in tech, hospitality, and tourism. And so, thank you for inviting me today. And happy to answer the questions.
That was just about perfect in timing.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to the 5 specific questions that we have, and the first one is district specific, and you'll have 2 minutes. What do you identify as the primary property rights issue in your district, and what is your single most serious concern regarding it? That is resource depletion, loss of local control, or unintended consequences.
Okay, well, I'll start with that one. I kind of have to say it's two. It's both property tax and then very specific to my district is mining. And so with property tax, I think that's not only my district, but across the state, there's an issue with why is that a property rights issue? Because it's your property, and we sort of feel like we're renting from the government. You never fully own your land. Unfortunately, the consequences there, unintended consequences, or some people are losing their homes. And I even have hired a person that we exclusively hired her just to pay her property tax. And so, that one is a big issue that needs to be dealt with. The second one, very specific to our county and a few other counties, is mining. In the city of Piedmont, they're planning on putting a large mine, and that it's right smack in the middle of a neighborhood, and they that's going to deplete the resources. That's going to lose local control because of a quick mining license they got, and the neighborhood's going to suffer by dropping values in their homes, as well as some health issues with the local community being schools nearby, right next to the mine, as well as a number of homes. So those are kind of the two significant issues. The mine's been in the news recently, and we need to balance property rights, but it's an issue with digging in the neighborhood.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to question 2. What specific legislative action or policy change would you champion in order to address this issue?
Yeah, so I have brought 2 property tax bills in 2025, and I brought 3 property tax bills in 2026. Uh, to address a definite core issue of property rights. You know, people want to own their land, they want to own their home, they want to own their ranch. And so I brought those. Unfortunately, as most saw in the news, the governor basically announced at the very beginning of the sessions that he doesn't like any property tax bills at all except for his. And it shows an issue that we have in our legislature, and that is that the governor carries a bully pulpit that is significant. So you need a governor that is willing to address these issues. That whether you liked or not, Janklow years ago, he carried that bully pulpit and got some property tax reform done. That was out there. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to work with a governor who's ready to really tackle that issue, not the light pat on the back we got out of the one this year from the governor. Secondly, as it relates to mining, I brought legislation this past year to notify people. Seems common sense, right? If you're going to dig in their area, you're going to put a new
Claimant.
dust or anything in their area that you actually have to notify the
It
citizen.
only hits 25.
And so I had a bill that basically just said you have to notify the citizens if you're going to be doing property issues nearby, and you have to notify the city and county nearby as well so that they can deal with it from a local perspective. So those are the legislation I brought to deal with those issues.
All right, thank you. Hey, and just a reminder to everyone on the call, if you can just double check and make sure your microphone is muted, that would be really appreciated. Let's go to question 3. Core components. Property rights involve the right to possess, control, exclude, enjoy, and dispose. How is the right to enjoy at risk from state mandates in your district, and how will you protect it?
Sure. Well, we've there are some state mandates now that are a little bit weak as it relates to mining that I mentioned, which affects a number of counties. Uh, all that the state mandate says now is, hey, you just need to stick a little tiny thing in a newspaper in a totally different district, and you're done. You notified, and that's a state mandate that is not helping the people because people have no idea they were going to put this giant, 300-acre mine right in their neighborhood. And so that's an example of poor law that we have in place that needs to be fixed. We need to make sure our citizens are notified. Um, and then also we saw, a couple of years ago, the idea of a state mandate allowing things like eminent domain abuse. And we definitely have to be proactive to prevent that type of stuff from getting in our law. I brought a bill in 2025 to make sure that we had some protection from eminent domain abuse, not only for carbon dioxide pipelines, but as it related to two growing issues. Carbon dioxide pipelines were a East River issue, but central state issue are the windmills and those coming in, and then of course West River where we're at is we have an issue with solar panels coming in. And again, I'm a business guy, so I love business, but I don't like the idea of eminent domain abuse. And so the bill that I brought actually addressed all three issues: carbon dioxide, solar, as well as wind, and some of the carbon tax or the tax credits that were coming from the federal government, and said, hey, look, we need to make sure we have protection in our law to prevent eminent domain abuse across all of those spectrums.
All right. That was perfect. That was like on the second.
Okay, good.
All right. Number 4, eminent domain. Under what specific circumstances, if any, do you believe eminent domain should be used for projects owned by private corporations?
So if we rewind a little bit with eminent domain, if you look in the US Constitution, it talks about it being used by the government. The government is the one who has been given that right. And our founding fathers were smart to list the government as the entity that could use that. And so I don't think private companies should be using it in any situation. I really am against that. And not because I'm for any particular reason other than looking at our founding fathers put that in place. And so sadly, we've seen that abused, particularly in South Dakota, where private companies have been able to sue to use eminent domain. And I would not be for that. And I've not only had legislation, but have supported others and spoken up on that topic. Um, ultimately, we need to make sure that even in South Dakota, we have some protections against that because that has been a topic that's come up the past couple of years. And really, we need to start working our way back to the U.S. Constitution that says the government is the only one that can do that for public good. And the benefit of the government is we can get these people out. So we have electability or voting ability to move these people out or move the right people in who are not abusing that, but using it truly for public good, and the government being the one that has the capability of using that.
All right, our fifth question. Describe a scenario in which local control is not enough protection.
Yeah, so what comes to mind for me for that is safety and security. Really a core role and one of the primary and few only roles the government should have, actually. In that case, I would say emergency and fire, police, even our National Guard, if we look at that from a state level, that protects us from a state level perspective. And that's certainly a proper use of government that needs to be wider than that local control. And then I'll also point to the federal government. Why do we need to go to the federal government and go out of that local control? Because we need a military to protect our country and to protect our states from any outside and sometimes internal attacks. And so that would be a scenario that only local control would not be sufficient because that should be and is a duty of our larger government entities. Another element I'd say is just our judicial system. If you travel in South Dakota and you cross county lines, we need a judicial system that supports people doing good, fair, right, and honorable business. And that we need to protect people from bad actors. And that's what our judicial system does. And I think that can't only be done on a local level because with business across the state and really across the nation, you need a judicial system that crosses those lines and exceeds the capability of a local entity. But if I had to put everything under one kind of branch, you can tell that it's safety and security for our citizens is an area that I think we often need to go sometimes more than local, but use local as well.
All right. Now, in closing, as we head toward the June 2nd primary, it's vital that voters know how to reach their potential representatives. For our final 2 minutes, please let folks in District 29 know how they can contact you directly, where they can pick up a sign to show their support, how they can join your team to volunteer, and how to give donations, or just how can they get a hold of you to help. And you have two
Yeah,
minutes.
well, thank you. Yeah, so just kind of a recap. So again, Senator Carley, and I'll just recap with a couple things to give my contact info. But I was the author this year of the Save South Dakota Act, and that had to do with election integrity. But I think I'll just recap it here. That I think ultimately, if we have good elections, we get good people in who can help protect property rights. And so that Save South Dakota Act said basically citizens only voting in our elections. And those are the citizens that own the property here in South Dakota. So um, I hope that will cause us to have good people who support property rights and prevent eminent domain abuse as well. And so I look forward to those that would love to support me or help stand with me in protecting our citizens. I have a website called Carley, Carley, Carley for FOR freedom.com. And that's where people can either contact me, volunteer to support, donate, whatever they would like to do. And my contact number, 605-510-7008. And then my email, john@carleyforfreedom.com. And I'm out here in Piedmont, West River, just north of Rapid City, just below Sturgis. But the county of Meade, largest geographic county in our state. And but we love the whole state. Those of us in state government, we're not only voting for those in our district, but we're also representing those across the state because we all are South Dakota citizens and love seeing good, healthy government in place. So Again, thanks for today, and thanks for those of you who do this, and I would appreciate the support.